talk on behalf of DataKind. Possibly some of you have heard of us. Actually, show of hands. Is anyone heard of DataKind here? Yay! Some people. Great. So we're a charity who work with charities. So it's completely NGO all the way down the line. We are pretty much those people, although there's more of us, obviously. And so we're essentially trying to solve a problem that was kind of alluded to in the introduction, which is that data is obviously a very powerful asset to have, but the skills that are required to do data analysis and specifically data science, which is what we work with, are really expensive skills. And as you can imagine, when you're an NGO, you can't really afford to have data scientists in-house doing the analysis. That would be really helpful for you as a charity, not only for you as a charity, but for the people that you're trying to help. If you're a homelessness charity, I think we're going to have a talk about homelessness later, so that is something we've worked on as well. And those are problems that require specific skills, very complex data sets to acquire, to clean, to handle, to analyze, and to use for potential predictions. And all those skills are very expensive skills. So we are putting together a volunteer data scientist who will help charities complete projects and complete analysis that those charities could not have done in-house. So what I mean by data science in our particular in our case, in the projects that we do. So basically, we've got the kinds of data that we've got tend to be, I wouldn't say big data, because actually, I know it's a really busy word, but really, quite frankly, the data we tend to deal with is usually quite small scale data. It's very human data. It often has to be painstakingly anonymized because it contains often very specific, very personal types of information. So it's data that's got a real direct human impact and human relevance. So the volunteers that work with us when we've got data on homelessness, and we've got data on poll monitoring for voting fraud, or we've got data like you'll see in one of the examples I'm going to show you on people actually sending text messages to each other to try and solve problems. Those are very human level data sets, and that makes them a lot of fun to work with, and also you can kind of directly see the type of impact that you've got. So it's not usually tons of rows and zeros and ones. It's data that's got a real human quality to it, and obviously that's got its challenges. And the type of science that we're trying to do there is really something that is often quite, the kind of problems that we're trying to solve are problems that we come up with through, setting up a hypothesis and thinking, well, this is the type of impact that a charity would like to have, and can we prove that it does have this impact, or can we prove that this impact is required, or can we understand better the problems, social, usually problems that they're trying to solve, and this kind of idea of setting up, a problem as a hypothesis and trying to either invalidate or validate it is something that as data scientists we're kind of doing automatically, or data analysts, it's something that is kind of built in. But for the charities that we work with, it's a fairly novel approach. And that is something that is also very challenging and very interesting, because when you're a charity, really what you need to do is you kind of have to constantly prove that you're doing something, that you're having an impact, not only for to carry on your work, but also to get funding. Funding being obviously, when you're an NGO, an essential part of your function. And so you kind of have to prove to people all the time, and to yourself, that you're doing something. And this check, this validation is something that is often not really done. So that is a lot of what we do, and the projects that we take on have to do with this kind of, this proof. Is basically the burden of proof is on us to show that there is an impact from the charity's work. So the core programs that we run as DataKind, we've got three main types of events. So I'm just, by the way, giving you a kind of quick broad overview of what we do, and then I'll give you an example of a project that we took on a few months back. So we run some meetups. We have a meetup channel where we run meetups regularly to talk about the projects that we've taken on, to talk about the results that we've had, to talk about kind of new challenges, generally speaking, in data and data science. We run data dives, which are kind of the main focus of our work, and those tend to be essentially hackathons, but for data science. So we have people preparing the data for 2 or 3 months on end, together with the charities that we work with, and then on the day of the data dive, we'll have about 20 to 50 people per project coming in and working over 2 days to solve the problem. So those people are data scientists, or data analysts, but we try and take on people who have data science skills. And if anyone here obviously is interested in joining us in this, you're more than one for them, give you all the context at the end. So those are events that run over a weekend usually. Then we sometimes run what we call data jams, which tend to be kind of like a data dive, but on a one-day basis. So again, people coming in and crunching the data over one single day. Then we also run data core projects. So those tend to be long-term, 3 to 6 month type projects where volunteer work on a weekly basis on a project that is being led by 3 data ambassadors. And so those are fairly complex and quite involved projects. What sometimes happens is that charity or social organizations come to us with an issue that they're trying to solve, and we look at it during the data dive, so we kind of get a good idea of what the potential benefits are that we could add to this project, and also what the potential problems are with the data sets. And then if we think that we can take it a bit further, and then the analysis can be brought a little deeper, then we go on to a data core project. So at the moment we're setting up a data core project with the health charity Mind. We've got a few kind of projects coming up that we will be running, and those tend to be fairly involved. So they've got basically so usually it's usually 4 to 6 months, and people working on a weekly basis on those. So I'm going to be talking about a project that we did recently, which was with WeFarm. WeFarm is actually not an NGO, it's a social organization, but usually we work with NGOs. In that particular case, they're kind of very much, almost like an NGO essentially. So we worked with them on this, and they're a very interesting social organization. So this was a project that we had running about I think it was in October, so a few months back now. And so essentially, WeFarm is trying to solve a really technological problem, but within an environment that is not so technologically advanced. So they work with smallholder farmers. There are currently about 500 million smallholder farmers in the world, most of whom live on less than $1 a day. So we're talking about completely non-tech area here. And so those farmers are obviously extremely vulnerable to effects of climate change or to general kind of environmental events that would affect their crop, affect their animals. And so we've got kind of an issue to solve here, which is that all those those kind of organizations, those environments tend to be very connected. The farmers would communicate with each other quite a lot, but when you're dealing with a very, very large-scale farmer community, the idea of community becomes very, very brittle, and it's quite difficult to put people in touch with each other. So what happens actually, and this project concerns farmers in Kenya and Uganda, is that we've got, let me just go back here quickly. So we've got essentially people who communicate through text message. So WeFarm set up a network of text messages, and they're putting people in touch with each other. So people would send through a question on the text message network and then get an answer back from another user. And WeFarm organizes the network and monitors it. So you're going to have people essentially, the idea is that they would ask other people for advice on crop, or how do I deal with this sickness in my that my chickens have currently, or what do I do with this type of disease in my crops? What kind of fertilizer would you use in those conditions? How to deal with the kind of current drought or flood? So they're very much the kinds of questions that you would go around and ask other farmers, but because of the kind of scope and the sizes of the areas that we're talking about, the communication is much more difficult than this. So this is where the text messages come in. So it's kind of a tech but non-tech issue, because obviously text messages now we all think, well, we didn't just not use the internet. Obviously, most of those areas are not connected to the internet. So this is why we're going back to text messages. So we worked on 2 different kinds of problems during this project. The first problem was, what kind of questions are we dealing with, and who's using the system? What are they using it for? What's their user experience, and how could we make the platform more efficient? So we divided this up into the kind of general network, so who's using what and how are they interacting, and then the actual content of the information that was being transferred across the network. So that's essentially text messages. And we were trying to answer those questions to really help the organization better understand what challenges they were facing and how to better address them. So when we talk about platform efficiency, they thought, and I mean, they already had the feeling that there was some kind of lost efficiency in the platform, that people might not be responding at a high enough rate, or they might not actually get the questions that they could have answered to. People who were sending across questions were not getting the right answers, or they were not getting enough answers. So there, I mean, if you imagine, thousands of people communicate through text messages, I mean, it requires a lot of tweaking to get this working efficiently. Otherwise, you just get completely inundated with questions that have nothing to do with what you're interested in, and you just, drop off, which is sometimes what was happening. So that they were trying to find a way to identify those problems and those red flags to better solve them, and also to better understand who was using their network exactly and what they were doing with it. So the first aspect of the problem that we looked at was the users, and we really wanted to try and figure out who they were. So in terms of where they're located, what do they do, and how do they communicate? So what are the qualities of the network? So if you think of the whole kind of communication network as an actual graph, so you would have this kind of side of the question would be looking at the nodes, and the next side of the question would be looking at the actual links between the nodes. So what is the type of information that is being transferred, and how does that impact the actual structure of the entire network of communication? So this kind of is the ideal zoom into the network. So if you imagine that you've got this multiplied by 100 or 1,000, you've got an efficient network. What's going on is that this guy over here is trying to send a question across, and so the network relays it to a person who's got something to say about it, who's got an answer. So how do I deal with this disease currently in my crops? And that person actually has encountered that same problem, has found a solution to it, or has an idea, suggestion to make. She sends it back, and he gets it back, and so everything is great. People have communicated efficiently, and this is a nice kind of ideal type of node and link. That's the ideal path. What tends to happen is this. So you've got a person who's asking a question to this other guy. This other guy doesn't actually know. Not only does he not know, but he's also asking another question, which is no one. There's no one on this side. No one gets an answer, and everything kind of gets lost. Partly because the person who was receiving the question in the first place was not really the ideal recipient for the question, and partly because there are just too many broken areas in the network, so things are not being transferred correctly. So that's kind of how to fix it, is that really you would want to have somebody who would be what we call a super user. So that person would be more likely to answer questions, generally speaking, than other users would be, and they would be also more likely to answer the specific questions that we're talking about. So if we, so this person there will be a super user. So he would get a question back and be able to answer it, and he would be also able to act as a link, if you will, in the network to redirect questions to the right place. So if you think of network efficiency, generally speaking, whether it's a human network or not, you've always got nodes that are really important, and that would tend to, if you remove them from the network, everything's going to crumble. But so we're trying to identify who those people are who are essential, and how can we rely on their place in the graph. So if you think about this person, basically the question was really how do you identify that person in the network? And the idea is that essentially if you've got a network of tons of people that you think would be answering questions from each other, just sending all your questions to that same person. So let's say we have identified this guy, and he's the person who tends to answer questions, 9 times out of 10 or something. So you give him a score of, an answer to question score. But just sending everything to that person is not going to be enough, because he might not necessarily be the one who actually knows the answer to that specific question. So then you have the problem of there is not just one type of information that's struggling on a question network. There are several types of questions. There are several topics. There are things that some people might know about, some people will not know about. And this is where you have to get a little bit deeper into it, and you can't just rely on the structural properties of the network. You kind of have to go into what is it that people are actually talking about. So this is where your kind of slightly more crunchy and dirty type of data comes in, and this is where you start having to deal with the actual messages. So those are examples of the kinds of messages that we actually had. And as you can see, there is a lot of frustration. I mean, this is actually a kind of list of one question after the other. And so there is, I don't know if you guys can actually read it from here, but there is a lot of frustration. There are people talking about things that have nothing to do with each other. So really, there's quite a lot of people trying to sell things, trying to by pigs. They're really trying to get Jane's mobile number. That kind of kept coming back. I don't know who Jane was, but really, somebody really wanted her number. Also Augustine. So they also started using the network as a kind of, as a kind of general social network without necessarily having very much to do with farming itself. And that's also an issue, obviously, because if you basically flood your network with things that have kind of nothing to do with what the network is trying to solve, then it just, it kind of breaks by itself, because suddenly you're just trying to sell pigs, and then you're reaching this guy who just wants J mobile number, and it's not going to work out. It's going to go nowhere good, and so it's just going to breed frustration, and then eventually you have tons of people sending messages through saying, look, can I just, can I get out of this thing, because it's just, it's not working out for me. So the scope that we had looking at the messages was really trying to analyze the actual text behind the messages, and so we started looking at the topics that were being looked at, and also at the problem of languages. So actually, one of the issues that we had not really thought about was that we had. So what was the? Yeah, sorry. So we had a problem with the actual languages that people talked about. So we kind of assumed that everything was in English, although we knew some of it was in Swahili. But actually, there was a significant amount of it that was in Swahili, and the problem is that people talking Swahili were being rerouted to people speaking English, and vice versa. So you had a lot of people who, most people who would speak in English would also speak Swahili in those regions, but actually the reverse was not true. So you had loads of people who actually could not speak English, and so if ever a question in English was reaching them, it would just get lost at this point and not carry on. So that was one problem that we tried to look at. It was just a simple language detection approach, which actually was solved in a fairly simplistic way, just looking at a general kind of distribution of the most common words in each language, and just map quickly at anything that would come in. You would actually just do a count of the types of words, so the most frequent words in the message, and map them to either of the two languages. So that would be an approach that would help at least classify each message coming in and ensure that it would just then be rerouted to a person who spoke that language. Then we run some sentiment analysis on all this data, and one thing that kept coming up is the type of frustration that we just saw with the pig and the phone number type things. So the question, how do I contact Tabitha from, I don't know, maybe Facebook if you have her address. And then people started getting a bit heated up there, started using all caps. So they're clearly, they're also actually, all caps is a good way to check whether somebody's just really angry. It's like a kind of super simplistic sentiment analysis, but it does work. So you have, loads of people who are really kind of not getting anywhere. And at this point, obviously, in the context of the communication we're talking about, if you end up having extremely negative type messages like this that you actually classify as people just being angry and annoyed, you might want to just stop them and not keep rerouting them, because that will just escalate and go nowhere good either. So another thing that we looked at when we analyzed the messages was looking at the topics that were being talked about. So as I mentioned earlier, there are obviously issues with rerouting information to people who don't necessarily know about what you're doing. Now, a lot of those smallholder farmers actually have quite a few crops or a few types of culture going on, but you still have some specification. And chicken is a very common one, as you can tell. So the second one, this here is corn, that's cow. Don't know if you guys can imagine what that little smiley turd is. It's fertilizers. And we had quite a large number of, and this was actually reduced from even a bigger group of topics. So we ran some natural language processing analysis on the topics, specifically LDA if you're interested. And this was what came out. And so we actually, by reducing those topics to about a dozen, managed to classify quite accurately both what topics we were dealing with whenever a message was coming in, but also what kind of users were, who was using what topic. So there would be a super user who would mostly just be talking about chicken. That would be all they would be talking about. So there would be kinds of people that you would mostly want to route chicken-related messages to, but not necessarily the other ones. So that was the idea, and basically what we worked at, and we kind of discussed this with the CTO and the data scientists that we're working at, we found is that we kind of had to design a prototype for them. So they had this kind of problem of network efficiency, and they understood that a lot of the problems or rather the non-efficiency that was in the network was due to them just not pushing the information to the right people or in the right way. So we designed a prototype for them, which is actually an extremely simple prototype, but that is essentially what it did. So you would have a message coming in, and then the idea would be that you both try and target a user who you've classified as an active user, so somebody who tends to answer a lot of questions, regardless of what the questions are about. But then also hit the correct topic. So each user would have some score of, I don't know, some kind of answerability score, or like you'd have whether you're the kind of person who tend to answer a lot of questions or fewer, or whether you tend to answer them during the evening or during the morning, or whether you answer them over the weekend. So there's also all kinds of time components that come into effect, and you can essentially just give a few parameters that specify for each user what is the best kind of way to hit them so that they're actually a useful node in the network. And then you actually have some qualitative information, so related to the user, that says those are users who talk about chicken, who talk about corn growing or fertilizer use or drone. And then ideally you end up with farmers who are connected to each other and who can actually communicate efficiently. So that was the idea behind the project. Now, the one thing to bear in mind is that this project was actually something that was quite rare in what we do, and the people who were so the people from WeFound are actually very data savvy people. So there's actually a data scientist in the house, which is very rare, with the organizations that we work with, and then they have a CTO who also understood very well the problem. So that really helped us, because that means that we got a lot of data from them that was fairly clean. I mean, clean considering, right? We're talking about text messages, so it can't really get that clean, but at least it was kind of correctly ordered and formatted so that we could actually use it on the day. And they also really understood the issues that they were facing, both on a kind of general level and on a more technological level. So when we kind of designed that prototype for them, it just made a lot of sense for them. We could just kind of give a lot of lines of code to them, and hopefully they can implement that and put that into their system. So that's kind of what we try and get out of a data dive, is both some kind of insight that they might not have had, or they might not have had time to do it. I mean, if you're dealing with 2 or 3 people team, this is something all the work that we did was over a weekend with about 8 people, so loads of people working on different aspects of it, and half of it is gonna go nowhere. But that's the kind of problems that you're dealing with in data science anyway. You kind of have to put the effort and the time in it, which is not something, again, that those NGOs usually have, or those organizations. So we try and get to the point where we've got some interesting insights to share with them, and also hopefully either some kind of working code or some prototype, something that they can actually go and implement. Because really, at the core of what we do is the idea that we're not just here to kind of come up with a great number and people are going to be, oh wow, that's really useful, great, but then they can't do anything with it. So we're really trying to increase what we've kind of what we're using what we call data maturity. So generally speaking, in an organization, you have kind of different levels of data maturity, and as you would expect in charity organizations, often the data maturity is quite low to start with. But we really are trying to kind of push that onward and to try and demonstrate the use of data in charities in general, and in their specific cases, what they could do with the data. So if those guys actually had a better organized system that they could actually reach more people, they could get to the point where actually everybody's connected. They could get to the point where people actually start talking to each other and say, you should join WeFound, it's great. I've got all kinds of questions that I've been asking to people I've never met, and I've got a lot of really helpful answers. And obviously the kinds of impacts that we're talking about there, they seem kind of quite trivial, but actually, I mean, when we're talking about the livelihoods of smallholder farmers in Africa, those are really quite impactful. They become impactful very, very quickly. We had a case of a guy who kind of discovered a way to protect his I think it was protecting his crop with a certain type of plastic that actually resisted the rain much better than other types. And this was just something that, like, once you know this, you're like, well, this is great. I can just share this with hundreds of people, and suddenly we're going to lose way less crop when there's a big flood coming in. And so those are things that would actually have a direct impact, and they are the types of information that we want to be able to reroute from people who have them to people who need them. So that was what we did with WeFound people, and I encourage you to check out their website. It was really, really cool. So basically this is what we do, who we are, but so I haven't had very much time to go into detail about what we do and how we are really organized, but please do get involved and check us out. If you're a data analyst or data scientist and you want to work with us, either on a long-term basis or just come into our next data dive, or even just come into one of our meetups when we'll be talking about our projects a little bit more, do check out our that's the meetup page. This is our main website. That's the Twitter. So yeah, thanks for having us.